All right, so today I'm joined by Vinny Dias. He's got a fight coming up in March. It's an eight-man tournament. He's fighting for a $10,000 grand prize. So, Vinny, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, bro. How about you?
I'm doing good, man. You just got some training in earlier today?
Yeah, I did wrestling today, Niagara Top Team. Good session. It
Nice,
was great.
bro. You were training with Jeffrey and those guys over there. Who's the
Yeah,
head coach? Chris Prickett?
yeah. Prickett's the head coach.
How do you like
Yeah.
training over there?
Oh, it's great, man. Like these guys have proved themselves as like the best in the country for wrestling. So I mean, if you want to get that good wrestling work, you gotta go down to where these guys are.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about like their accolades? Because I've been hearing a little bit about like Chris Prickett and some of the stuff he's been doing.
Yeah.
What makes them like, I guess, special in a way?
Well, what makes Chris specifically and the team special is that Chris was coaching at Brock for a while, and Brock was winning the national wrestling tournaments like year after year after year. So over the last, I would say like 5-10 years, they've established themselves as the best wrestling team in Canada. And Chris was the assistant coach for that team under Marty Calder. So like the same stuff that they're doing to win championships is what Chris is putting across to us in Niagara Top Team. So I mean, through that team, he's kind of proved that what they're doing works and what they're doing is the best. And then obviously in MMA, like our guys are doing great too. Like all the Niagara Top Team guys are killing it. Like the last car we went 4-0. Everybody's showing a little bit of that wrestling in there too.
Yeah, it's probably the X factor for you guys, huh?
Yeah, that's I would say the best thing I get out of going to that gym is the wrestling, man. Like Chris brings it, and like he just has so much good shit to spread around that it's definitely a very important part of my training going down to to Niagara.
Yeah, and I mean, you're originally from Brazil, right?
So I was born here, but my parents are from Brazil.
Okay. Did you spend any time training out in Brazil at all?
Yeah, I've trained there a bit. I have some cousins there that are black belts. So like whenever I go down, I always train with them. I haven't gone in a couple of years, but like I've definitely spent some time there training.
Okay. Any like extensive time, maybe like a couple months out there at a time, or just like
No,
vacations, visiting family?
yeah, more just like 2-3 weeks at a time. Nothing crazy.
Okay,
Um,
for sure.
but I've got to like kind of see how the scene is there.
Yeah. Would you say that the wrestling over at Niagara Top Team has like rounded out your game? Because I noticed you do have two submissions.
Been doing jiu-jitsu a long time. I started when I was 8, so like I kind of always had that like grappling base. But wrestling was something, especially like after I started fighting amateur. I realized that like I was lacking in the wrestling, so I spent like a lot of time making sure that my wrestling was on point or something. I was wrestling every day. I even recently I made a trip down to Pennsylvania. They have some great wrestlers down there too. I lived there at one of the wrestling clubs for like 2 months and just like worked on my wrestling every day. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, it was definitely something I knew I didn't have as much experience in as jujitsu or kickboxing because I started both of those together. So wrestling was like the last kind of piece of the puzzle that I really like kind of dove deep into.
Okay.
But come to love like wrestling is a big part of my game and like I like it a lot.
Right. Awesome, man. Well, I'm curious, like, how do you kind of get over to Pennsylvania and stay there for a month just to train? Because I hear of a lot of fighters being able to go places, stay there for like months at a time. But I'm always wondering, like, how are you able to stay there and train? Does someone kind of host you over there and like
Yeah,
maybe a buddy, a training partner, or something like that you can stay with?
yeah. A lot of these gyms have like dorms kind of attached to them. So there's like places like you can just pump up an air mattress and just like sleep there.
For sure.
That's what I don't know what everyone else did, but I just like stayed at the gym. The place I was at, they have like a little apartment like attached to the gym. So like a couple of the fighters live there, and there's a room open. So me and like two other people just shared this like tiny ass fucking apartment. It was like
Yeah,
300 square feet for 3 people.
you
So we
guys are
like,
just roughing it.
oh yeah, like one of us was on a bed, and then I was on an air mattress, and my coach was on a couch. So it was just
Dang.
like, yeah, it was tight, but I mean that's how you make it work. There's no
Yeah.
like 5-star accommodations. Like it's pretty grimy, but I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah,
Definitely. Sounds like you might do good in like an ultimate fighter setting too, then, if you're loving that.
yeah. Yeah, no, that stuff's fun, man. Like I like living with fighters. It's awesome. Like you just really focused. It doesn't feel like you're going kind of from your regular life into a fight. Like
Hmm.
when you're living at the gym, it really makes you feel like everything you're doing, like from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep, is about fighting.
Yeah, like
Yep.
that's your life. You got
Yeah,
people like-minded around you and stuff like that too, huh?
yeah. I mean, I wake up and I got my coach staring at me. Like you got to be on point from the second your eyes open.
Yeah, there's no like debating whether or not you're going to practice later or
No,
something like that.
no, like there's no nothing. Like you can't slip up for even a second. Like these guys are always there, always checking you. It's just it's a really good way to like get held accountable for like what you're doing inside and outside of the gym.
Yeah, definitely. And then you can probably take those habits right after, and then it
Yeah,
makes it a little easier when they're not there.
yeah, exactly. It sets you up for good habits in the future.
Yeah. So, I mean, how'd you get your start in martial arts then? You started in kickboxing and jujitsu, you said. You got
Yeah,
a couple uncles in martial arts too, right?
yeah. Well, actually, I started when I was 4. I started in karate, and then when I was 8, I transitioned to jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. I wanted something a little more aggressive than karate. I liked it, but I didn't like how I couldn't actually like because in karate there's rules where you can't actually connect with punches and competition.
Hmm.
So I want to be able to actually like do damage, connect with people. So I started kickboxing and jiu-jitsu. Um, Honestly, the whole reason I started, I was just a really hyper kid. Like I like to play sports, but like it doesn't matter what I was playing. If it was hockey, it was soccer. Like I always needed it to be more rough. Like I was always getting all aggressive and shit. So my parents were like, "Man, let's just put this kid in martial arts," and it was perfect. Like from the first day that I tried it, I loved it. Like it was the most fun I ever had. And
Nice,
from
man.
of it just kept going. Like I never really like deep down, I never saw myself doing anything else. Like fighting was my passion, like from a young age, and I grew up like that. So like looking back, it's no surprise. Like I ended up a professional fighter. I mean, like it's pretty much what I've enjoyed to do for the majority of my life. So it
Yeah.
makes
Was
sense.
it something where like you were doing karate in the beginning and you took some other time to try other sports and you just kind of like, you're like, I liked karate, like I like that fighting atmosphere the most, or how did
Yeah,
you kind
I
of get
played
all the way into it?
even like for a good amount of time, even after I started jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. Like I played lots of sports. There was just nothing that ever really got me excited the way fighting did.
Yeah,
Um, I'm also oh, shit,
you're
my
good.
bad. I'm also not a I don't like team sports very much. Like I like individual sports.
Hmm.
And I don't know, man. I can't tell you why. I liked fighting so much. It's something I like. I say a lot of time that it kind of chose me. Like I feel like it wasn't something I made this like conscious decision of like, oh, fighting's gonna be my thing. It's just it kind of just life unfolded and it happened to be the thing I like the most.
Yeah, probably like you look back now, huh? And you're like, damn, man, like look at all this work I've done. Like it's been like a life accumulation, huh?
Yeah, I've just like
Nice.
it's yeah, I've always really enjoyed it and I still enjoy it and I think I'm going to for the rest of my life. So it's
Yeah,
a
and I
good
mean, you're only 2-0 so far, so you're just getting started in your pro career. Are you in? How's the journey in that so far? Like two
oh,
fights. How is it?
it's great, man. It's everything I ever wanted. Like I dreamed of this my whole life. Like I always wanted to be a pro fighter and when it happened it's the best thing in the world. It's my job to wake up and train every day. Like I get to do what I love and I find that's something a lot of people don't get to do. So I feel blessed that I'm able to chase my dreams and get to do what I love every day.
And so let's talk about the tournament a little bit. Do you know who your opponent is coming up?
Yeah, Izudin Atma.
Okay.
So yeah.
How are you? You've done any scouting on him? What's the thoughts on him at all? Going into it,
He's a pretty good striker.
pretty
Um
good striker.
yeah, haven't seen him grapple much. Um but I've said this before, I'm not really I don't pay too much attention to what my opponents are or what they do. Obviously I take into consideration, but I just don't put a heavy emphasis on who I'm fighting.
Hmm.
Um I have a style and I have a game that I play and it doesn't matter who's across the cage for me, like I'm gonna use the tools I have. So it's not like I'm gonna change anything up for this guy. It's pretty standard what I'm gonna try to do.
Okay, so game plan's not really changing for you at all, huh?
I think game plans can vary a little bit, but the skill set that I'm going to use to get it done is pretty much the same. So I mean, like little things, and there's obviously like little tactics that'll be employed, but overall, like there's no major changes that are happening from fight to fight. Like it's what we're looking to build is like my coaches and I have an idea of what a world champion skill set looks like, and we're getting closer and closer and closer to achieving that skill set. So like regardless of who you put in front of me, like my development is going to stay the same. Like we're still working on developing the same stuff. Like we know what we want the picture to look like. We're going to continue painting it regardless of who they put in front of us in the fight. Like who they put in front of me isn't how we choose on what skills we're going to develop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we know what type of fighter we're trying to develop, and we're going to continue to develop it regardless of the type of fight that we have coming up.
Yeah, mostly like a blueprint then that you're following at the moment rather than
Yeah,
like taking it opponent by opponent. It's like a
yeah,
long-term blueprint, right?
exactly. We're looking at a final, like a finished product, and we know what we want that to look like.
Okay.
So we'll continue to work towards that, and like we'll take the fights as they come. But realistically, like I know, and my coaches know, like what a UFC champion looks like, and what skill sets you have to be that, and like we're gonna work on those skills.
So looking into the blueprint then, what are your goals as far as like progressing in your career as far as promotions go? Maybe like a couple of your teammates like Aaron and Jasmine, they came fought on the contender series. Is that something you're looking to do as far as like bridging yourself into the UFC, or just talk about like future goals as far as progressing?
Yeah. So I mean, if everything goes as planned, I'll finish this tournament in June 4-0. Um, Probably get one or two more fights at the end of the year. So hopefully we finish the year 5-6-0. And then by then, yeah, like we could start looking at getting into a bigger show, whether it's like getting into the contender series or straight to the UFC, Bellator, whatever it is. I think the steps like that I think are hard to plan. And I'm confident that like if you just keep up with the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. So we keep putting in good training camps, we stay in the gym, and we keep racking up the wins. Everything else will kind of fall into place. Thinking about the big steps, like it's not going to get it done. Like realistically, what's going to get me in there is just keep doing what I'm doing and stay consistent, stay active, continue to rack up the wins and continue to become better every day. And I think if we do that by the end of 2023, we should probably be in a big show.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you win this tournament, right, or even for you when you win this tournament, and then if you get two more, that's 6-0, right? So it's a pretty solid record. Hop in there
Yeah,
on the contender series or something like that for
yeah,
sure.
that's what we're thinking. But like I said, it's kind of one fight at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to I focus a lot on the small things and making sure everything that's under my control is done properly. And I figure that all the things that aren't in my control will fall into place if I just focus on what I actually have control over.
Okay. That's a really good mindset to have, I think. So good for you on that one. How talk about your training a little bit. Can you tell me like what you like to focus on throughout the week?
Mondays, I go to Niagara. Mondays is wrestling. So we have like a hard, good wrestling practice. Then I come back to Toronto. I usually lift weights. And then I do jujitsu at night. I teach a class and then I roll. Tuesdays I usually do boxing sparring at Grant's MMA in Toronto. Really, really good boxing gyms help me a lot. Working on my hands, working on my defense. So Tuesday we go spar. I lift weights after I spar, and then at night I drive up to Guelph. I run another jiu-jitsu class, and then I roll up there with my students.
Okay.
Wednesday, I go to Grants. Wednesdays is defense, so like it's everything. It's all boxing and kickboxing, but all defense. So just like making sure your eyes are sharp, making sure you're catching punches, like not getting hit. Like a lot of people spend a lot of time developing their offense, especially for striking. Like you go in and there's the combo of the day or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Not a lot of people spend hours and hours on end focusing on their defense.
Dude, I
Um,
notice a lot of fighters that get caught with like shots that you would kind of expect them to have their hand up, right?
yeah,
So Yeah, man, I
Yeah.
do notice that it really does seem like sometimes fighters are just like hitting pads more than they're like blocking the punches that are coming. It's
Oh yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Like before grants, I had never really gone to a gym where they actually spend an entire session just blocking punches in different sorts of ways.
Yeah.
Like
Like parrying, that kind of stuff, catching them and stuff, slipping.
all sorts of defense. That's kind of the name of the game on Wednesdays. Just work on defense. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and then at night I teach again, classic Vaughn. Roll a little bit, lift some weights. Usually Thursday I go back up to Niagara, spar. We do sparring and wrestling. And then at night, usually I'm gonna go do jiu-jitsu again. Um, Friday I usually hit pads with my boxing coach. And then Friday night, I usually take for like a recovery session. I go and I do like a like sauna and ice bath
Hmm.
every Friday. And then Saturday, I usually spar again. Or I
Okay.
go down. Yeah, Saturday, I usually do a second sparring session for the week.
Over at Niagara.
No, Saturdays, I usually spar in Burlington. There's a gym
Okay.
up there. I usually go there.
And then probably save Sunday for an off day, I'm assuming.
Yeah, Sunday's usually light. I might teach like a few private lessons or something, but usually I don't do anything like hard on Sunday.
Okay. So like I guess two things out of that. Have you felt your game grow a little bit from like A, coaching jujitsu, and then B, like we mentioned earlier, like working on that defense ever since you started working on those? How have you been, has your career gotten better?
Yeah, man, coaching's really interesting because like a lot of people they can do moves really well, like they pick their best stuff, they can do it, but they can't necessarily explain what they're doing, or they really don't actually know what's going on. So like when you're trying to get like someone who's older, out of shape, like doesn't know what's going on, like if you can get that guy to understand what's going on, you really know what you're talking about. And I've found myself having to dig deeper and deeper in understanding how things actually work when I'm trying to get them across to somebody who has no idea what's going on. So I found teaching has elevated my game. It's also elevated my understanding of how jiu-jitsu actually works. So yeah, I think teaching is a really good way to actually make yourself understand the things you do well even better.
Okay.
Uh,
What belt are you, by the way?
I'm a brown belt.
Brown belt. Okay. Nice.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then how about that boxing defense? Like just working on that. Um, how has
Same.
that helped you? Same
Night,
thing?
yeah, night and day difference. Like it's you're at a point where like I'm really comfortable making sure I'm not getting hit. And that's one of the biggest, like we're talking big picture thing. Like that's a goal that I'm gonna work very hard towards is making myself very difficult to hit. Um I've noticed a big difference, especially in like my comfortability, if that makes sense. Like I know that I could stand across from somebody, they could start throwing at me, doesn't matter how hard it is, that
Hmm.
I'm take punches and see what's coming and keep myself in a position to attack when there's an opening there. Um yeah, so I think there's I've definitely noticed a big difference in both aspects of that. Like definitely big difference in my defense. Definitely jiu-jitsu is always getting better. So
Okay.
those yeah, I mean anything that you spend time on, you're gonna probably notice differences in, as long as you're the way you're training it's smart. I
Hmm.
think whatever I'm spending time on, I'm gonna get better at.
Yeah, and I
Uh,
mean, you tell me because you're the fighter, but it seems like through defense, you almost become more dangerous, right? What do you think
mhm,
on that?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So
A lot of yeah. I absolutely agree with that. I think that's true both for grappling and for striking.
grappling and striking. Can you explain that in grappling on that side?
Yeah. For example, I'm very comfortable in my defense and grappling, but I have been for a very long time.
Hmm.
Um, I know it doesn't really matter how deep I get into a bad position. Like I know that I could find my way out and get back to something dominant. So it's like defense and grappling matters a lot because like sometimes you're gonna get put in bad spots, and like if you can turn those bad spots into offense, you become a hell of a lot more dangerous if you can only be offensive when things are going your way.
I
You know,
see.
you can do to like eventually you're gonna get put in a bad spot. There's nothing you can do to avoid that. You can be as good as you want positionally, but eventually you're going to get put in a bad spot. And if you don't know what to do from there, things are going to go from bad to worse. You know,
True.
you know how to operate from those bad situations. Things go from bad to a lot better and very quickly if you take the time to develop those skills. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, being really good defensively is extremely important. Like knowing that, like, because people are gonna try to fuck you up. Like we all know that. And assuming that you're always gonna be on the good side of those exchanges is not smart. You got to understand how to operate when you're not on the right side of the exchanges, whether it's on the feet or whether it's on the floor. Like you got to know what to do when your opponent's trying to make his offense work. And if you
Hmm.
can stop them from making their offense work, it's a hell of a lot easier to get your own off.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like a reverse engineered way of looking at it. And actually, I remember I heard one time, I think it was Nate Diaz or Nick Diaz, he said it. Like for a fight, the way he prepares is he tries to imagine every like possible bad scenario, him getting like dropped on his head, him getting knocked out in front of like thousands of fans. So is that like a mindset you have too? Instead of thinking so much that like you're gonna take this guy out and like you're bulletproof in a sense, you kind of think about things that could go wrong.
Not really.
Okay.
Uh, I don't necessarily think about what could go wrong in a fight. I just understand that I understand all the positions in the game, like especially in grappling, and I understand that there's offense and defense to both positions. And if you're gonna call yourself master of grappling, you have to understand the offensive and defensive sides of each position. For example, like I don't necessarily have to think like, oh, I might get my back taken for me to work on my back defense.
Hmm.
Like, even though I know that, let's say I know the guy I'm fighting is probably not going to try to take me down. He's probably not going to try to take my back. It doesn't matter if I'm not going to be in that scenario. I still have to understand how to operate there. You know what
That
I
makes
mean? Like
sense.
these things, even if I don't see these things coming up in my fight, even if I don't see myself getting put in these bad positions, you still have to know how to work from there if you're going to call yourself a skilled grappler.
That makes sense. Kind of like maybe in between, right? You want to maintain your confidence, but also work on the things like if somebody takes your back, whatnot. But you don't have to necessarily think like, oh, this guy's gonna beat me up on my back, and that's why I need to work on it. You just do
Yeah,
it from a preventative standpoint.
it's more of like these are part of the skills that you have to master if you want to be good at jiu-jitsu. So
Yeah.
like I see it as like, oh, I'm doing this just to make sure I don't get finished. It's like I'm doing this for my overall development. And that's where we go back to talking about not looking at it from a specific fight point of view, but like the overall blueprint. Like
Hmm.
if you UFC champion, like that's somebody who better have good defense on the ground.
Yeah,
No UFC
definitely.
is going to be somebody that you put in a bad position and is easy to get out of there.
Hmm.
You know, somebody who's looking to be at the top of the sport should be difficult to work with in any sort of position. There's nowhere you should get against the best in the world where it's going to be a walk in the park. And that's kind of how I want to develop myself as a fighter and as a grappler. Like there's nowhere that you can fight me that's going to be easy for you.
Yeah. I mean, like even you saw it with the Poirier versus Oliveira a little bit. Oliveira was able to outclass him, unfortunately. For Dustin, because he had a good story going into it. But that's kind of what you're talking about, huh? You don't want to be dominated like that when you get to a title fight. You don't want to have something like that come up where it's like, oh man, like I should have been working on my grappling all along, kind of a thing.
Yeah. I just think that like I said, I think that we have an idea of what we think a championship level fighter looks like.
Hmm.
And one of those things is good defense, right? It doesn't matter if it's on the feet or on the ground. It doesn't matter what position it's in. If it's side control, mount, back, north, south, like you have to know how to escape these positions. You have to know what you're doing. It doesn't matter. Like there should never be a moment where you feel like you don't know what to do or you don't know where to go or you're in a place that you don't work from often. Like
Exactly.
you should always feel like you have an idea and you have a plan on how to operate from every position. You should never be put somewhere where you don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Um, that's how I approach grappling. Like I preach that to my students. Like just as much as it's important to work on your offense, like you need to work on your defense too.
When you're in training camp, you eating healthy and stuff like that, or anybody helping you? I know your
Yeah,
teammate Aaron has a nutrition company kind of going on.
Yeah, he does. I've actually never worked with him, unfortunately.
Okay.
So when I was in Pennsylvania getting ready for my first pro fight, the guys from there hooked me up with a nutritionist. Her name's Tracy Lumger. Actually, I have her shirt on, weirdly enough, that you
There we
asked
go.
that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she does all my nutrition while I'm in fight camp. So she'll literally send me like spreadsheets with like amounts of food like weighed out that I have to weigh out and make. Um, and then I pretty much can only eat for 8 weeks before the fight. I pretty much only eat what she tells me to eat. And it's normal food. It's just more like the portions are controlled. And it's all really healthy stuff. But like I'm not doing any like crazy shit. Like I'm not like removing carbs or not eating fruit or anything. Like I know some guys
Okay.
do crazy shit. Like I eat everything while I'm in camp. I mean, anything that's not processed, like all the whole foods I'm able to still eat. Still able to eat carbs like rice, potatoes. So I'm not necessarily like I'm not killing myself or honestly I don't know what the fuck I would do if I had to make 135 by myself, man.
How
Like
was it before you met your nutritionist then?
um I was just smaller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I was just smaller, so it was easier. But like I've put on a lot of size, so it's like I has to be guided by a professional because like it's difficult to do alone, and even if like you can do it alone, because like it doesn't take a fucking scientist to run a calorie deficit, but it does take somebody who knows what they're doing to make sure that your performance is still good while you're running this deficit.
Hmm.
Right? You put yourself on a calorie deficit, you're gonna feel tired. You're more likely to get injured. Your performance tends to decline. So it's the real balance is how do we lose the weight but maintain my performance in the gym.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets tricky, and that's why I work with Tracy because she makes my life easy in that sense. She takes care of everything. All I gotta do is weigh the food, make it, eat it, and she gets me there like no problem.
Nice,
Plus,
man.
great while I'm training too, so it's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Right. Awesome. Well, and then are you running your own strength and conditioning routines, or you got a coach for
Uh,
that too?
yeah, so I had a coach a while ago. His name is Aaron Diedrich. He introduced me to West Side Barbell, which was it's a powerlifting gym in Ohio, run by Louis Simmons. They have a bunch of textbooks and stuff. I read a lot of their textbooks. So I kind of understand how to program the conjugate system, which is what they use. And currently, I've been structuring that myself because you can literally like use a textbook to write the program, and I've
Okay.
been doing it for maybe like the past 5 years. I've worked with like a few coaches sporadically in that last kind of like little bit. Just people to help me with like accessory work, making sure that like my joints are healthy and stuff like that. But most of what I do is powerlifting from Westside Barbell.
Okay.
Uh,
And
I,
then I was gonna ask too, like, so it sounds like it's mostly powerlifting, huh?
yeah, powerlifting, yeah, and it's mixed with some like other type of like weird kind of physio exercises.
Like
Uh,
mobility and stuff like that.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, a
You
lot of
definitely have
that.
to maintain that, huh, for like jujitsu and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of where I've worked with like some physiotherapists and stuff to kind of like supplement strength work to kind of make it like kind of like prehab stuff to make sure you don't get hurt and make sure like your joints are moving well and working properly.
Yeah. And then you going on like cardio? Do you do like airdyne, run, swimming? What's your approach for
Yeah.
cardio?
Usually, well, the majority of my cardio I get from training. I just think that there's no supplement for it. Like you could be a marathon runner, an Olympic sprinter, or whatever. Like we put you in the wrestling room, you're gonna gas.
True.
So I think like the
Yeah.
best form of cardio is sparring and wrestling. Personally, like hard pads, hard sparring, wrestling. Obviously, like there's times where you get hurt or you can't make it to the gym, whatever, and then I'll supplement. I like swimming.
Okay.
I like the air dying as well. Battle ropes are good too.
Nice.
I used to run more than I do now, but um, I don't really feel like it's made a difference in my cardio. I feel like honestly the main thing is wrestling and sparring. Like those are the like you're really consistent with that. I think that's when I noticed the biggest difference.
Okay. And I mean, this might even be like a unpopular opinion, but part of me kind of thinks that maybe powerlifting does have some kind of benefit to your cardio just when it comes to MMA. Because like, let's say you're going in for a big takedown or something, right? Those are big movements. And if you're doing powerlifting movements and you're more used to that than the next guy, I feel like you might have a little bit more in the tank as far as, let's just say, like the amount of takedowns you can try to shoot on someone in a fight. What do you think
Yeah,
on that?
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So Louis Simmons has an opinion on that. It's pretty much it's similar to what you said.
Mm-hmm.
He said let's say the total amount of weight I can move is 100 pounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I have to move you and you weigh 50 pounds, it's going to take half my energy to move you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I now increase my weight, and let's say we increase how much I can lift to 200 pounds, now moving you is only going to take 25% of my energy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So like the more I can lift, the less of my energy I have to use to move the same amount of weight.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
Like if like someone who's way stronger than me, like one of these giant power lifters has to lift up 135-pound barbell, they can do it like indefinitely. Those guys could rep that out for fucking 50 reps.
Yeah.
Fine. So yeah, I think powerlifting definitely does translate a little bit to helping with cardio.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like you said, like takedowns and those locked in positions where like you're tensing your muscles. Yeah, I absolutely
Exactly.
does help. Yeah.
Okay. What was the name of that book that you read in the workout system that was called?
The book's called West Side Barbell Book of Methods.
Okay. And what's like, is there a specific method on that you're following?
Yeah. So what they do they call it the conjugate system. So
Yeah, that's what it was. That's the word.
it's a way to program your strength work. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, you go through different phases of different types of strength that you're working. So like for 3 weeks, I'll work on my explosiveness. For 3 weeks, I'll work on my speed. For 3 weeks, I'll work on like my absolute strength, and we're always kind of mixing those in. And every time I kind of work myself through a cycle, we retest all my 1 rep maxes. That way, you can write yourself a new cycle. So like all the
Okay.
numbers, like pretty much all the whatever type of strength you're working, whether it's explosive strength or your speed strength, that the amount of weight you lift is based off of your 1 rep max. So, for example, like they work their explosive strength from 30 to 40% plus bands of your 1 rep max. So, like you have to know what your 1 rep max is to be able to properly train the type of strength you're looking to train.
Okay.
So, like you got to test your 1 rep max, and then from there you can kind of structure the program and structure the volume to make sure you're giving yourself the amount of work you need to achieve the improvements that you're looking for. So it's
Yeah.
never every like the total volume of the workout has to be calculated. The percentages that I'm using of weight on the barbell have to be calculated. It's a lot, but I mean
Yeah.
they've produced they've produced a lot of world record squatters and deadlifters, bench press. They've broken lots of records.
Yeah, that's a
So
pretty sick method of training, actually.
yeah, no, it's really interesting, man. It's all calculated down to the last pound. So there's
Yeah, and
nothing
it
left.
seems like it's really like rooted in like seeing your evolution on a maybe 3 week basis, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's honestly is great, man. Like I think what Louis did in powerlifting is great. Anywhere you go where somebody is constantly breaking world records or like constantly producing world champions, like
Mm-hmm.
have a method to what they're doing. It's not random. It's
Definitely.
whoever shows up there, if they're put through this method, they're gonna have success.
Yeah.
Uh,
And it sounds like a method you can apply to like a lot of aspects and just life in general, even as far as like, fighting, you can work on like boxing really hard, and mix in the other martial arts. And then maybe you can work on like MMA really hard when you're working on the other martial arts. So in a sense, you can maybe tie it into other things in life too.
yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
for sure, hundred
Awesome.
percent.
Well, what's the fight date again for you, Vinny?
March 5th.
March 5th. Okay, man. And then is there any way people can watch it at all?
Yeah, it'll be on a stream. If you go to btcfight.ca,
Okay.
there'll be a stream on there. So if you guys want to watch that, just click on the link and it should show you how to buy it. But you're gonna have to do that closer to the fight because I doubt they have the link set up right now.
Okay, I got you. And then so you are 2 fights into this tournament so far?
One fight. This will be the second.
Okay. And you said this is the semifinal. All right, man. Well, good luck on March, and we'll be trying to stream that fight for you. We'll look into that a little bit later when the
Thanks.
fight date comes. But
Awesome.
yeah, good luck in training, man, and thanks for taking the time.
Perfect. Thanks, bro. Thanks for having me on.